Good evening and welcome to Creatively Speaking. Our guest speaker this evening is Peter L. Robinson, Jr. He is a retired Director of Graphics and Management Presentations Division of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. We're going to delve into a life of art and design, the Peter Robinson factor. Peter Robinson is a native Washingtonian, educated in the D.C. school system, and he began his formal artistic training under James A. Porter, Lois Mayle Jones, James Wells, James V. Herring, and other artists. He was drafted in 1943 and spent 3 years, 1 month, and 10 days in the service, and he was then discharged in February of 1946. I'd like for Peter to continue his story.
Thank you for inviting me, and I'm very pleased and honored to be here. First, I'd like to give credit to the two men who were my ultimate role models, and they were my father, Peter Robinson, and my grandfather, William McCutcheon. Both were men who were born dirt poor. My grandfather was, although he was an uneducated man, ran a business in Old Southwest. My father was the youngest of 8 children who had enough drive and intelligence to achieve 2 degrees. 1 degree from the Old Minor Teachers College in Washington, D.C., and the other degree from Howard University Law School in 1924. So those 2 men were my ultimate role models, and I always said to myself, if they could have done this in the time frame in which they came through, I have to do something to support what they have done. My early education was in Syfax Elementary School, Randall Junior High School, where my dad was on the first faculty at Randall Junior High School. And at Randall Junior High School, I may have received my first real inspiration in terms of being an artist. Mrs. Stewart, my art teacher, put a brush in my hand, and I think I was in heaven from
that time
from that point on.
Yes.
Then when I reached high school, I was exposed to Mr. B.C. Dotson, who taught fine arts, Mr. Buckner, who taught what we called in those days commercial art, Colonel Ferguson, who taught engineering drawing and architectural drawing, and that was important because at that time I had not decided whether I wanted to be an artist, an architect, or an engineer. But I fell into the art side very quickly because that was my true love.
Right.
My true love. After that, I entered Howard University and was exposed to Dr. Porter, Dr. Lois Jones, Dr. James Wells, Dr. Herring, who created the art department at Howard University. And I think with all everything put into proper focus, Howard University molded me into what I am today. Work-wise, my first job after graduation was at the Census Bureau out on Suitland Road, and we were drawing big plats for the 1950 census, and I was classified as a cartographic draftsman. That's drawing maps. And actually, the way I got the job was I had applied for an artist illustrator position, and they had no artist illustrator positions. They said, we have some cartographic draftsman's positions. And the lady asked me, she said, do you know anything about cartography? Well, cartography is the science of drawing maps. So I said, of course. I was getting ready to get married and didn't have a job.
Right.
So she said, okay, I'm going to send you over to the geography division, and you will see Mr. So-and-so, and he will talk to you. So I went over, and I saw some fellows who I knew at Howard University who had been at Howard, and they were working on what we call these big census plats on lining and making these drawings on lining. And the lady asked me, she said, do you know anything about drawing census plats? I said, oh yes, I knew all about it. So she said, okay, we're going to give you an exam. And I took the exam, and the gentleman who was in charge, he said, well, wow, you are better than guys who have been working here for a couple of years. When can you come to work? I said, I can come to work Monday morning. And that was my first job after graduating from Howard. After that, I moved downtown to the General Services Administration and stayed there for 5 years. And after that, I moved to Andrews Air Force Base, where I really got my feet wet in terms of designing graphics and running what we called it in those days a management center. A management center and a war room are the same. They are facilities in which you display art to show program progress and what have you. And in civilian agencies, they are called management centers. In Defense Department and whatever, they are called war rooms. It involves art and graphics that display program status primarily.
Well, clearly, Peter L. Robinson, Jr. loves the play of color, shapes, patterns, forms, and the investigation of space. Imaginative and provocative, his body of works are exquisitely rendered and offer bold and declarative essays on his views of the visible world. Peter, talk to us a little bit about your work and style. And of course, you have a piece here.
Right. My style, according to the critics, is abstract expressionism. I love color. I love bold, splashy color. I want to knock your eyes out. When you see it, I want, and my art is happy art. And that probably is because I had a happy childhood. I've had a happy life. So I express myself in warm, happy colors. I had a gentleman ask me one day, why is your work so happy? And my only answer was, well, I had a happy childhood. I've had a happy life. And that's the way I express my art. I use a lot of yellows. Yellows are a bold color, a brash color. And I had a friend who was a psychologist, and she said that I had a bold personality. So if I have a bold personality, I express myself in the art in that fashion. Again, my art is a happy art because I've had fortunately a very happy life. And I owe that to my parents and my grandparents who followed me, gave me inspiration, and were happy with whatever I could do with the arts. And I'm so grateful for that kind of support and for the people at Howard University who really molded me and made me what I am today.
Peter Robinson is a colorist, and one of the things he would say is, can I do this again? Can I make a painting as good as the last one? Did I get lucky? Peter, talk to us about some of the influences that you had from artists of the past. Okay,
when I was a youngster, I used to browse the Phillips Art Gallery. I used to browse the Corcoran Art Gallery. And when the Mellon Art Gallery, or the National Art Gallery as it's called sometimes, was built, I used to browse that gallery. Those were my galleries that I loved. At the Phillips, I must have watched the Boating Party, which is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful painting. And I got my inspiration from those paintings. The rest of the Impressionists at the Mellon Gallery, I must have watched Salvador Dali's Last Supper 1,000 times. And the Boating Party was and still is one of my favorites.
And you're considered a modernist?
I'm considered a modernist, but my inspiration came from the Expressionists and the Cubists. And I have developed whatever my personal style is.
Right.
And it's not up to me to classify myself. I'm satisfied with whatever the critics where they want to fit me.
Well, describe and talk to us about your painting that we have here today.
Okay, that painting is called Peter's Fruits. And again, you see the bold yellows. And the backgrounds are subdued so that the fruits become the major focus of the painting. And I've used bold primary colors, which is my focus point. And I use a subdued background to further emphasize and put emphasis on the fruit, which is the focus point. Bold primary colors. I'm not afraid of color. Some
Right.
people are, and those
Yes.
people, particularly young people that I have an opportunity to talk to, I said, don't be afraid. Put it out there. Knock their eyes out. Just put that bold color out there and let it live, you know.
Would you say your art is impacted by your career? The fact that you did use patterns and designed maps and the types of things you did for NASA?
A lot of my art that I do today is the result of my work at NASA.
Yes.
When you're up high looking down on the earth, you see patterns in the earth, in the ground. And in my later works, I show a lot of patterns. And I think that's been one of the major emphasis on inspiration in terms of how I perceive and proceed in developing my landscapes. They're contemporary landscapes. They're not traditional landscapes. And that's the direction that I have taken. And so far, so good. Let's knock on wood.
Absolutely. Peter, what would you say to young artists coming up today, and what kind of advice would you give them for pursuing a career in art?
Get a good foundation, go to a good art school. Again, get a good foundation. I can't stress that too much. Do the basics, learn color, and then after you get out and start painting, throw it all away and do your thing.
Well, Peter Robinson's skills as a draftsman are strong after more than 25 years as an illustrator and graphic artist for NASA. When he paints, his concerns are not with the imitation of nature, but with the individual expression. Peter will talk to us a little about how he goes about creating a painting. And I've been to his home, and he has many, many beautiful pieces. He's an oil painter, and that has been his forte.
Everything I do is oils. I love oils. Acrylics and the other media are okay, but I love oils because of the flexibility it gives. Sometimes when I start a painting, I'll make a little thumbnail sketch. Sometimes I don't do anything. It's here, and I just go to work and start working. And in the beginning, I may have one thing in mind, and then I'll hit a spot in the road where I'll say, oh, suppose I go down this way. Then I'll say, oh, maybe I should go this way. And from that will come a series. I'll probably finish the painting that I started, And then out of that painting that I started will come 1, 2, maybe 3 more. So I guess the bottom line is that I really don't know where I'm going sometimes when I start a painting, and I just let it guide me. And I'll hit a spot and I say, oh, I could go that route, I could go this route, I could change this, so forth and so on. But the bottom line is I like big, bold, brave color. And I think that's going to be my forte forever. The statement that I make every now and then, did I get lucky? Can I do it again? That's true. I don't know whether I can do it again. But 90% of the time, I'm satisfied, you know. And that brings up a question that a young person asked me one day. When do you know when the painting is finished? You don't. I never know when it's finished. I just get to a point where I say, well, I'm going to stop. Because I've looked at paintings that I've done 3, 5 years ago, and I'll say, why did I do that? Why didn't I keep on and do this, you know? That's what I mean when I say it's never finished, you just stop. You get to a point where it stops, and I hope that it's okay.
Well, tell us about your being invited to be in the Smithsonian and your artwork.
As a child, I grew up browsing the Smithsonian, as I said, and it's the greatest honor for me to now be in the Smithsonian. The Smithsonian is in the process, and ground was broken about 2 months ago, of creating the new museum that's going to be called the National Museum of African American History and Culture. And they have chosen 3 of my works to be in that museum. I'm absolutely proud of that. And it's very interesting as to how it came up. As I said earlier, my father was one of the first African American officers in World War I. And I have given part of his uniform to their collection. And they were in my house picking up the uniform, and they saw my paintings. And they said, whose paintings are these? I said, mine. And then they got into my background, and that's how I turned up being in the collection. And I'm very, very proud of that. When I was a kid browsing the Smithsonian on Sunday evenings, afternoons, I had no idea that one day I would be represented in the Smithsonian. Pat myself on the back.
That is wonderful. I met Peter several years ago at Strathmore at the show The Common Bond. And then we have formed a friendship because I too am a painter. I came along a little bit later than Peter, but I too went through Howard University. My teachers were also James Porter, James Wells, Pierre Noel. I'm a native Washingtonian. It's just amazing that people's lives intersect and cross, and you just never know where you're going to end up.
Right.
And now I'm, as president of Prince George's Artists Association, I'm constantly looking to interview artists across the board in the arts, in the painting, in the music, and we're really enjoying doing this show. And I am so honored to have you come and be a part of our show, Creatively Speaking. And at this point, do you have anything else to add?
I'm fascinated by what has happened in the last 30 years. My career comes right behind those famous people that you mentioned, Lois Jones, Porter, Wells, and all of Catlett. And they laid the groundwork for what I was able to do.
Yes.
And what makes me so pleased and so happy is that your generation, the younger generation, has picked up the ball where we left it and are doing what we're doing today. Strathmore, Common Bond was a wonderful opportunity out at Strathmore, and that grew out of Howard University Artists. The common bond was that most of us went to Howard and we were African Americans. and that lasted for 15 to 20 years.
Yes.
And I hope it continues, because it was a wonderful opportunity to show in an upscale art atmosphere in the mansion at Strathmore. Your generation has picked up the ball, and you're doing this.
Yes.
You're doing this. You are carrying the effort forward, and Jacob Lawrence and those people, Catlett, Lois Jones, Porter, they started the ball rolling. David Driscoll picked up the ball from Mr. Porter in his writings and what he's doing out at
Yes.
University of Maryland.
Maryland.
The University of Maryland has also honored me by choosing 3 of my works for their permanent collection in the Driscoll collection. So I'm very pleased, and I'm looking forward to what you're doing and your generation carrying the ball forward.
Thank you again, Peter, and this has been so enlightening. We've taken a short journey through your life,
Okay.
and I hope the audience has enjoyed it, and we're looking forward to seeing you again, having you again join us at Creatively Speaking, and thank you.
Can I say one other thing?
Yes.
I'm 90, and I'm going to make 100, so I'm going to be painting for the next 10 years. So look out for my work. I'll be around, still painting. Thank you very much, and thank
You're
you for
welcome.
inviting me.